Hello, welcome to The Moment. This time I have three smaller stories rather than two larger ones. I'll start with an update on the ongoing Arch story, and then I'll be talking about the new constituency proposals from the Boundary Commission for England. And finally, I'll give an update on the situation with Rothbury Cottage Hospital. If you have any stories you'd like to see covered, please leave a comment below. Firstly, I'll talk about the most recent developments with the Northumberland development company Arch. For those who don't know, Arch are a group owned by Northumberland County Council and have been the source of controversy over the last 7 months or so. The first coverage I did of them was back in March, when they were planning to develop the County Hall site in Morpeth, as the council wanted to move to a new location in Ashington. The propositions for the site were for 200 houses, a school and a shopping centre. These were strongly opposed by the people of Morpeth at the time, with over 1,000 people marching in protest. Despite this, the proposals were passed by the council, which led to the Conservatives saying that they would scrap Arch if they got into power. The next major event was when one of the construction companies, Maple Grove Developments, pulled out of the project in April. They were the company that was going to build the 200 houses as per the plan. The reason for them pulling out wasn't given beyond a vague statement about current market conditions, according to the BBC story at the time. Then, of course, the May council elections came around, and we saw naturally that the Conservatives took over from Labour, as the latter lost even Bedlington, which up to that point had been a Labour stalwart town. An investigation into Arch was almost immediately launched, and in August, 2 of Arch's directors were suspended. Again, the reasons for the suspension were not given, and the Chronicle pointed out at the time that there was, quote, no suggestion Ms. Kell or Mr. Serapok, who were the 2 directors, were involved in any wrongdoing. Now, the latest from October is that there is a police investigation into the company. From the Chronicle, they say, quote, a police investigation over financial and governance matters at the council-owned company is underway. Northumberland County Council's regeneration arm, Arch, has been subject to an internal strategic review for 5 months. Northumbria Police has confirmed it's been called in to probe financial and governance issues at Arch. So that's the story as it stands, and there's no more information given about the specifics of the investigation. But at this point, Arch seems to be the source of so much negative publicity for the council that it's a wonder they simply don't just cut them loose. But whatever the case, I think it's highly unlikely that Arch are going to recover, at least from a PR standpoint, after this. So now let's move on to the next story. The Boundary Commission for England has recently published its updated changes to the parliamentary constituencies in England. From the Gazette they say, quote, if approved, the amended proposals would see the formation of the following constituencies: Berwick and Morpeth, Blyth and Ashington, and Hexham and Cramlington. Every single ward in Northumberland would be included in these constituencies, unlike the previous proposals. Following a decision by Parliament to reduce the number of constituencies in the UK from 650 to 600, and to ensure that the number of electors in each constituency is equal, the Independent Boundary Commission for England, or BCE, has been asked to make recommendations about where the boundaries of English constituencies should be. An initial 12-week consultation was held in the autumn last year. Strong community evidence was received from across the North East, both supporting and countering the BCE's initial proposals. In the North East, particularly compelling evidence was received regarding Northumberland, as well as Cleveland and parts of Durham, where the Commission had decided to move away from its initial plans. Based on what the public had said, the BCE has decided to revise 80% of its proposals for the region. Looking at the BCE's map of the region on their website, it's possible to see how much things have changed. Overlays allow you to compare the initial proposals with the newest ones, as well as seeing what the current constituencies are. The initial proposals were for a large Hexham and Morpeth constituency, one called Berwick and Ashington, and a new Blythe Valley, which would bring Bedlington into its purview, eliminating Wansbeck constituency entirely. The new Blythe and Ashington constituency includes Bedlington and Newbiggin as well. The new Berwick and Morpeth would be the largest in terms of overall area because of how sparsely populated it is. This constituency would include Rothbury, Alnwick and Wooler, as well as other smaller towns. And finally, the Hexham and Cramlington constituency also includes Ponteland and Prudhoe, as well as, again, other smaller towns, and essentially retains all of the existing area of the Hexham constituency, but it loses Northumberland National Park to Berwick and Morpeth. So now I'll compare the electoral size between the initial proposals and the new ones. The originally proposed Berwick and Ashington would have had 74,891 electors. The new Blythe Valley would have had 76,694 electors, and Hexham and Morpeth would have had 77,566 in its electorate. So as for the new proposals, despite the size of the Berwick and Morpeth constituency, it actually has the least electors, with 77,026. Hexham and Cramlington is next, with 77,181, and Blythe and Ashington has the most, with 78,241. However, it's possible to see there that those numbers are a lot closer than the initial proposals. The four current constituencies that exist at the moment range from between 55,548 to 59,819 electors, so it's clear that a conscious effort has been made to balance out the number of electors. And below the map, the BCE say, quote, "By law, every constituency we propose must contain between 71,031 and 78,507 electors. We largely use local government wards as the building blocks of proposed constituencies. We try to retain existing constituencies where possible. We try to have regard for geographic factors." It definitely looks like the spread of electors across the new proposed constituencies would be a lot more equal than they currently are, which is definitely important with regards to the electoral strength of each constituency. And I will, of course, put a link to the BCE website so you can see where your town will end up if the proposals go ahead. And people have until the 11th of December to comment on these new proposals. And finally, the story of Rothbury Cottage Hospital might not be over yet. I mentioned last time that there was going to be a meeting to discuss the closure, and that Katie Scott, part of the Save Rothbury Cottage Hospital group, would be there to put the case against the permanent closure of the 12 inpatient beds. The outcome of the meeting was somewhat unexpected, as councillors voted to refer the matter to Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt. According to the Gazette, quote, "The aim of the meeting was to decide if the consultation with the committee had been adequate, if the committee felt the proposal would not be in the best interests of the health service in Northumberland, and therefore if it had sufficient evidence of these concerns to make a referral to the Secretary of State for Health." And as part of her statement to members, Katie Scott reflected on this first issue. "Surely at all stages the Security Committee should have been consulted. It seems to us that you have been ignored," she said. She also questioned the reason put forward by the CCG for the proposed closure, the alleged savings, the bed underuse, and the drive to treat people in their own homes, claiming all are flawed, as well as saying that the consultation had been defective. They then go on to say that, quote, "Dr. Alistair Blair, the clinical chairman, set out the clinical reasons behind the proposed closure, which included the fall in bed occupancy and the wider national context around more care being provided at home, and why this was beneficial." Further down, the story says, A majority of the councillors felt that whether the proposal was in the best interests of the health service in Northumberland could not be fully assessed, as it had not been made clear exactly what the Health and Wellbeing Centre will be. And this, by the way, was the CCG's proposed replacement for the 12 inpatient beds. And then it goes on to say, and there were also questions over the robustness of the data in relation to future-proofing and the knock-on impacts for the rest of the county. So it looks like the story will continue when the proposals reach the Secretary for Health, Jeremy Hunt. But I think it's quite a good thing that instead of voting on the basis of the information that they'd been given from the CCG, the councillors decided to refer it upwards. This may work to get some attention brought to the issue, and it'll be interesting to see what the results of this will be. And that's all for this episode. Be sure to join me in a fortnight's time for more from around Northumberland and Newcastle. Until then, I'm Oliver Ralph, and this is The Moment.